Driver, driving in the snow, especially when the temperature is near 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it is going to be extremely slippery, as they found out in the state of Indiana last weekend. We'll talk about that, talk about other skills, strategies, and abilities you need to stay safe in the winter time and out of the ditch. A few people are here already. Marion is here. Hello, Marion from Vancouver. Corey is here. Bricks for Wheels. He is the moderator, does an excellent job of getting up the videos I suggest you have a look at for more details to your answers. And Elevator Fan is tuning in from Monticello, Indiana. The weather in Winterpeg today. Yes, indeed. We got our first snow here in the interior of British Columbia today, and it was wet and right around freezing. Therefore, when the snow packed down, it started to melt, and there was a layer of water on top of it, and making it extremely slippery. And of course, the back roads hadn't been plowed. We were on the way to the dog park this morning, and the buggy was dancing around a little bit, even with the winter tires on, the slush on the roadways and whatnot. So stay in the tracks, the places where the other vehicles go on the roadway, to keep yourself safe when you're driving in the wintertime. And know that it's not going to be like this every day, 24/7 in the wintertime, as one smart driver was saying a week or so ago on a comment. It only snows 4 or 5 times over the course of the winter, so know that. Jay, my friend, how are you? And Kibi, how are you? Excellent. Not too bad right now. However, minus 29 tonight with the wind chill. Yeah, pick your place. Kibi, hydroplaning? No, we were not hydroplaning. It was melting ice and snow is what it was. So it wasn't hydroplaning. It was just dancing around on the ice and snow. So not enough traction and slipping and sliding as the vehicle was accelerating with the ice and snow. It's not hydroplaning. That's something different. That's deep water, usually combined with too much speed, and poor tires on a vehicle will cause a vehicle to hydroplane, where the wheels act like skis and ride up on top of the water and cause you to lose control. Wintertime, melting snow, temperature around freezing is something different. Think of it like a Zamboni going out and flooding an ice hockey rink. When the Zamboni goes out and shaves the ice and then drops a layer of water on top of it, that water lubricates the ice, and it's the same effect as snow and ice in the wintertime. If the temperature is around freezing, 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, there's a layer of water on top of the ice and snow, and that is what makes it slippery and causes vehicles to lose traction on the roadway. That's what causes it, though, doesn't it? No. Hydroplaning and losing control on snow and ice are two different things. The water in the wintertime, when the temperature is around freezing, it does not cause you to hydroplane, or aquaplane as another term, the British term for hydroplaning. That's not the same thing. The water simply lubricates the ice and makes it slippery. Another thing to think about to try and wrap your head around this is ice cubes. When you take ice cubes out of the freezer, and for the first minute, 90 seconds, they're really sticky because they're super cold. After 90 seconds, they start to melt, and you get a layer of water on the outside of the ice cube, and it'll go skidding across the kitchen counter onto the floor, because that layer of water lubricates the ice cube and causes it to be slippery and difficult to hang on to. And it's the same idea when you're on ice and snow, when the temperature is around freezing, that the ice or the water is freezing, melting, freezing, melting, freezing, melting, freezing, melting, and you get that layer of water on top of it, and that's what causes it to be slippery. It's far more slippery in the wintertime when the temperature is around freezing, as opposed to when the temperature is minus 20 degrees Celsius, or I don't know what's minus 20, it's about minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, because the ice and snow is actually sticky, and it will give the tires on your vehicle actually something to grip onto. Take note of the temperatures outside in the wintertime to keep yourself safe. And we'll talk about where you'll find ice and when ice will form, and the conditions that come together, the weather conditions that come together that will actually form ice. Jay, first flu of the year, alas. Good snow squall today. Had to push several vehicles up the hill in the patrol car today. Snow tires make a huge difference. Jay, you're absolutely right. Snow tires do, in fact, make a huge difference, because first and foremost, Snow tires have a softer rubber compound, so the tire still remains flexible when temperatures get cold. The other characteristic of tires is that they have what's called siping, good siping on them. So there's a lot of margin between the treads, and the treads flex, and they will get rid of the snow in between the treads, so it allows it to get more traction. That's why winter tires are so much better. Visibility will be reduced when it snows. Elevator fan, you're absolutely right. And the other piece about this is moisture in the air. You'll get fog, and again, it's overcast. As we know right now, here where I live in the valley, it is really tough because we're into a lot of darkness. It doesn't get light until 8 o'clock in the morning, and then it's dark again in the afternoon at 3:30. So you only get about 6.5 hours, maybe, okay, closer to 8 hours of daylight. The rest of the time you're in the dark. And as Elevator Fan was saying, that, you know, when it snows or you get precipitation, rain, fog, sleet, ice, it's going to reduce visibility even more, making it more treacherous when you're driving. Paul, garbage truck driver, was killed on his own truck. Apparently when he got out of his cab, he didn't put the truck and the parking brake in Scarborough. Paul, I find that difficult to believe, because these vehicles brake automatically when you get out of the truck. There's some mechanism, I don't know what it is, but I would have to look into it, that it automatically just applies when you get out of the truck. That it's just a safety feature on these vehicles. That as soon as they exit the cab, they get off the seat, there's something in the vehicle that they do not have to apply the brakes. The brakes apply automatically. It's the same thing as a recycle truck. So I would find that difficult that the vehicle rolled away because, or the driver did something. The driver, don't get me wrong, drivers will bypass the safety features in their vehicles and on their machinery to try and do their job faster. And so I would be suspicious of what happened with that driver in that garbage truck. It's always a nasty crash when your own vehicle runs over you. And this happens a lot in industrial situations where people get onto forklift trucks, tractors, farm tractors, those types of things, and they don't fasten their safety belt. There is a roll cage, a protection cage around the tractor, around the forklift, that protects you in the event of a crash or a rollover or whatnot. And what happens is operators get into the vehicle, they don't apply the seatbelt. The forklift, the tractor rolls over, and it rolls over on top of them and kills them. Again, I would be dubious. I would need to investigate that about what happened, but I'm almost certain that there is some sort of mechanism that automatically applies the brakes on those vehicles when they get out. Is investigating even as I speak. Yes, I suspect they are, and they'll need to figure out what happened, because generally what happens, and I know this was how it worked on transit buses, and I would suspect it was the same thing. What would happen is you would come up, you would use the brake pedal, and you would stop, and as soon as you stopped and released the brakes, there was a computer monitoring system on the brake systems. The parking brakes would apply as soon as the bus came to a stop. It was a safety feature for passengers. To get the bus going again, you had to make another brake application and then release the brakes. So you couldn't just step on the throttle and take off again. You actually had to push down the brake pedal, release it, and then apply the throttle to get going. I suspect that it is a similar safety feature on the garbage trucks or recycling trucks, where they come up, they come to a stop, the parking brakes automatically apply on the truck. And when they get back, when they exit the cab, they get back in, the parking brakes are still applied. They have to reapply the parking brake and release it again, and then it takes off. So that's the safety feature that was on transit buses. I suspect it's something similar with the garbage truck. So the video, yeah, if the garbage truck just rolled away, there was a reason that it rolled away. Now, it's a garbage truck. There could be maintenance issues with that truck. Brakes weren't serviced. Something went wrong. The tires, poor tires on it. They were on slippery road conditions, those types of things. There's a number of factors that need to be investigated to figure out why that bus or why that garbage truck let go. Jay, not all buses, that's a company option. Station hold, they call it. Ours only applied the brakes when you open the doors. Okay, so Jay, yeah, another safety feature. So it's comparable to the brake thing, and as you said, it's an option, but as soon as the doors are open, the brakes are applied. And until you close the doors, the parking brakes are applied on the bus. So it's one of two safety features. It depends how many safety features you want on a vehicle, but I suspect that it's something, there is a safety feature on the garbage trucks owing to the fact that there's just so many in and out of the cab, right, with these people. So as I said, it would need to be investigation, and depending on what the option is and those types of things. Okay, so we're getting away from winter here, and we're talking about commercial vehicles. So let's talk about winter. The reason Indiana had a pileup on the interstate, this happens every now and again, every 2 or 3 years, this happens where you get these massive pileups on these freeways, and you get a 45 car pileup and whatnot. Most of the time, there aren't a great deal of fatalities. They were not talking about any fatalities in that. At least I would need to fact check that. But there wasn't anything coming across social media. They just said it was a 45 or 50 car pileup that had happened on Interstate 70. Maybe Corey, you can just have a quick look and see if there were any fatalities. Usually there aren't any fatalities. Usually it's just a mangled mess of metal. There's your bit of alliteration for the day. Mangled mess of metal that that clogs up the freeway, and that people cannot continue on their trip. And then everybody goes, "Oh my God, the weather's so treacherous," and this and those types of things. And it's always difficult because there's never an easy reason. There's never a simple solution to why these crashes started. What happened? What was the original, who were the vehicles that were involved initially that caused this thing to have the domino effect where all these vehicles get involved in this crash? You know, slippery conditions, and it might be just one slippery condition in one section of the freeway where it begins to happen and nobody gets traction. Poor weather conditions, curvature of the road, many different factors can lead to these pileups on the freeway. But you need to take note. You need to also, pay attention to what moisture is going on, because did it happen in the morning? Did it happen in the afternoon? Those types of things. The pileup was on I-70. Yes, it was. Elevator fan. Marion, I'm glad you were not involved. Yes, we don't want to be involved in crashes on the interstates with, scores and scores and scores of vehicles. And then, of course, we get the AI slop that's, circulating the internet, and somebody posted one of these pileups and, big mass of metal on the freeways and whatnot. And of course, a couple of people pointed out that the tractor trailer had 2 tractors on the trailer. So it was definitely, some more AI slop. And I'm actually beginning to suspect that AI is now beginning to leave comments on my YouTube videos, because I had a comment this morning and it was not very nice. And I went in to investigate and was kind of looking at it, and I got in on the video and then the comment was gone. So either AI is leaving the comments or they're policing the comments that are being left on my channel, and they're erasing them. But something weird is going on. Corey, despite the large number of vehicles involved in the crash, there were no serious injuries. There weren't even any serious injuries. Curious. Okay. Elevator fan, pileups happen because drivers drive into clusters in the wintertime instead of the clusters on the highway. Yes, we cannot stress that enough. An elevator fan stated the fundamentals of defensive driving and keeping yourself safe on the highways. Stay out of the clusters, because if one person is involved in a crash, you're in it and there's nowhere to go, right? So be the lone wolf on the highways, on the freeways. And if you do have to go into the clusters to pass them, get in there and get past as quickly as possible, and then get out. And so you're driving in the spaces between the clusters on the highway to keep yourself safe. But again, as I said, these things are generally not serious, but they are spectacular in just the sheer number of vehicles that are involved in these crashes. But fortunately, seldom results in fatalities. It often only results, the only time that it results in a fatality is if there's a tanker truck that's carrying fuel or something and it ignites and there's a fire. But most of the time there isn't. These tankers, you know, it's not like in the movies, the Hollywood films, where they explode in this fiery inferno. These tankers have all kinds of safety features in place to minimize the risk of them exploding if they're involved in a collision. First and foremost, all these tankers are double walled. Okay, so you have to puncture the inner wall, which is probably a good foot inside the tanker, and then there has to be a spark of some sort in order to ignite this. And all of these tankers that are carrying flammable materials have cleanup kits as part of their requirement for hauling hazmats on their vehicles. So they have all kinds of kitty litter and those types of things to clean it up, you know, to do an initial cleanup on the roadways and whatnot. So fortunately, nobody was injured, nobody was killed in that pileup on the interstate, but they are spectacular and they do catch the public's imagination, as with any large vehicle crash. Tractor trailers, those types of things. I was writing an article today about air brakes on commercial vehicles that, many people say, oh, they failed. The garbage truck that Paul was talking about, that it lost its brakes, it's not likely that it lost its brakes. Something happened. There was poor maintenance. The driver did something wrong to bypass the safeties on the vehicle, or there was ice and snow on the roadways. There's a host of reasons that it could have happened that were not a result of the vehicle losing its brakes. Marion, maybe I should hibernate for winter. Too dangerous out there. Marion, it's not too dangerous. It's not dangerous. As I said, 24/7. It is not going to snow. It's only going to snow every now and again. Now, if you do get snow in Vancouver, Marion, then yes, hibernate for the day. Okay, because it's only going to last a day, two at the most in Vancouver, in Seattle, or on Vancouver Island. And then it's gone because the temperatures go up above zero and everything melts. Yes, and they should do the same thing. If it does get a day of snow in Seattle, or you get a day of snow in Vancouver, they should just shut down and go home because it's too dangerous. It's the same thing. A week ago, Calgary had snow and it was around freezing. And now all of the pundits for safety and think that they're safe are lobbying the government to fit transit vehicles with winter tires. It's the same thing last year. We got a dump of snow in Vancouver. They're all lobbying the transit authorities that all these buses should be fitted with winter tires, that we should spend tens of millions of dollars fitting all these vehicles with winter tires, not to mention the cost of storing these tires and the cost of fitting these on every year, tens of millions of dollars for 1 day, 2 days that you actually get of snow that is treacherous and too slippery to drive on. And of course, the other aspect of the Calgary thing, and I think AI had something to do with this, was they were talking about all the school buses. All the school buses here in Vernon all have automatic chains on them. So, and every time I hear a bus going past, I can hear the chains tinkling on the pavement because they hang down and they're just touching the ground. It's the same thing in Calgary. All these school buses have automatic chains on them. So how are they not getting traction? I don't understand that. Because they have chains on them. The transit buses don't have chains and they can't be fitted with automatic chains because the clearance is too low. School buses are up. They have 18 inches of clearance, which is about what is required to have automatic chains on school buses. But yeah, as Marion said, Vancouver drivers. But they should just, we need some leadership back. We need somebody to just, when it snows and it's around freezing and conditions are too slippery to drive on, we need somebody with some cojones to stand up and say, we're declaring a day of emergency. Everybody stay in your house. We're not going out. We're not going to work. We can have 1 day, one snow day where we all just stay home and we stay off the roadways and we don't drive unless it is an emergency. Because this is just crazy to think that, people are advocating that we put winter tires on transit buses. That's just really stupid. It's really stupid. It's a really, really, really poor allocation of money. Not to mention that we need to teach drivers how to drive. Because, you see these people on hills and then they get on the brakes and they don't release the brakes. They don't allow the tires to roll. And this is the other way that you're going to get into trouble on slippery conditions, is just by holding the brake pedal down. You have to release the brake pedal. Yeah, Jay, you wouldn't want me to be the Premier of British Columbia. Yeah, because I'd be the one standing up there going, yeah, it's the day of emergency in the city of Vancouver and you can all just go home for the day. We're closing down the roads and the airports and all the, non-essential services for the day to keep people safe. That's what we need to do. Yeah, so snow and ice, treacherous conditions, keeping yourself safe. You have to keep the wheels rolling. When the wheels stop rolling, they're locked up. That's when you're going to start to lose control of your vehicle. And, people are still coming at me about the winter driving and putting the transmission into neutral on your automatic vehicle. People are talking about downshifting, and every study on a skid pad will tell you otherwise. If you gear down and you begin to lose control of the vehicle, you can't get it going again. It's too late. You've lost control. Whereas if you're using the brakes and you begin to lose control of the vehicle, you can simply release the brakes, allow the tires to roll again. The vehicle will start to straighten out, and then you can apply the brakes again. And you need to slow down way back from where you actually want to get stopped in the wintertime and then creep up to where you want to get stopped. This is how you're going to keep yourself safe. You're not going to get up to where you actually want to get stopped and you're on the brakes and you go, oh my God, there's no traction and you're losing control of the vehicle. By then it's too late. So slowing down back from where you actually want to get stopped and then creeping up to where you want the vehicle to stop to keep yourself safe in the wintertime. Presentation. Let's get over to the presentation. 10 or 12 minutes here. We'll get through that and then we'll come back. We'll spend the remainder of the hour answering your questions about keeping yourself safe in the wintertime. Passing a driver's test will definitely help you with that in the wintertime. And I do encourage you to take your driver's test in the wintertime. As I said, it's not going to snow. It's not going to be treacherous 24/7. It's only a few times, half a dozen, 8, 10 times in the wintertime. Of course, it depends on where you live. If you live where Corey lives, where it's supposed to be minus 476 degrees Celsius tonight, Corey, in Winterpeg, battening down the hatches, kind of like living on the planet Hoth in Star Wars. It's not like that all the time. Most of the time, it's going to be just fine in the wintertime, and you're going to be able to take your test. All vehicles in this day and age are four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, and with a good set of winter tires on, you're going to have all kinds of traction. You're dealing with less traffic on the roadways because most of the vulnerable road users are not on the roadways. Cyclists, pedestrians, e-scooters, those types of things, they're all staying home. Know that. Driving examiners are less stressed. The test is less exact. You don't have to get 8 to 12 inches from the curb when you're parallel parking. For example, when you come up to the corner, the intersection to stop, you just have to stop behind the sidewalk and then creep out until you can see. And when you can see and you know that the way is clear, then you can proceed on your driver's test. So I do encourage you, take your driver's test in the winter time. As the final point on that, the driving examiner will give you kudos for taking your test in the wintertime, and also know that you're going to have a higher skill set because you're going to have experience with the understeer and oversteer from losing control when you're on slippery conditions, because you will do that if you're going out in a parking lot and bombing around or getting into the suburbs and places like that where roads are not plowed. You are going to experience losing traction with the vehicle, and how to recover from that, getting off the accelerator and then just letting the wheels spin again or rotate, get traction, and then resume, and you're going to be really great in the wintertime because you're going to understand how the vehicle operates on slippery conditions and compromised traction. So driving in the south, we're talking about Indiana, all the places below the snow line that usually don't get snow. Kentucky usually doesn't get snow. Southern Ohio doesn't get snow. What other states are there? Oklahoma doesn't usually get snow, but every now and again they do. And when they do, The driving public loses their mind. And I talked about this some time ago about tires on vehicles. Tires are expensive, and people do not maintain their vehicles to the level that some of us would like to think that they do. And my question about this in terms of losing control in the wintertime when it snows in these southern provinces and those types of things would be going around and actually looking at the vehicles that are in the ditch and looking at the condition of the tires on the vehicle, because I look at tires in parking lots and take note of the traction and or not take note of the tread, and tires aren't all the same, and a lot of people are not putting winter tires on their vehicles. I would say that the driving public, only about 25% of drivers and vehicles on the roadway actually are fitted with real winter tires. So this is the reason that they're ending up in the ditch. Not to mention that they're also traveling too fast. And as you can see here in the image, most of them are driving in a cluster with the other people on the roadway. So people ask me, how much should you reduce your speed in the wintertime when it's slippery conditions and it's snowing and those types of things? If you're going with the flow of traffic when conditions are bad in the wintertime, that's generally the speed that you should be driving on the roadways. They're going slow because they're concentrating, they're putting every bit of energy, all their driving skills into keeping safe when they're driving on ice and snow in the wintertime. It's most treacherous when the temperature is around freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. It's more slippery when the temperature is around freezing than it is when temperatures are sub-zero. Minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 12 degrees Celsius. And we talked about this, ice cubes, taking them out of the freezer. They're sticky when you first take them out because they're frozen, sub-zero temperatures, but if you leave them on the counter for 90 seconds, 2 minutes, they start to thaw. There's a layer of water on the outside of the ice cube and they become slippery and slick, and sometimes they'll go pa-choo across the counter and you have to go and pick it up off the floor and whatnot. That's the reason, because there's a layer of water on the outside of the ice. And it's the same idea in the wintertime when temperature is around freezing. The snow and ice is melting, thawing, and you have this layer of water on top of the ice and snow that makes the ice and snow slippery. All right, near freezing. So I got ahead of myself in terms of the presentation here, but another way to think about this for anybody who has skated or played hockey, done figure skating and those types of things, think of the Zamboni going out and flooding the ice hockey rink. Right after the Zamboni floods the ice is when skaters love being on the ice because it's super slippery. And there's a layer of water on top of the ice that is lubricating the ice and making it more slippery. And this is why in the wintertime, intersections are the most slippery, because the cars come up, they hit the brakes, the tires lock up and they slide a little bit, and it creates friction, which is the byproduct of friction is heat. And from that heat, the ice and snow will melt a little bit and you'll get that layer of water right on top of the ice and snow. This is why you need to be most careful when approaching intersections and braking, and you should start braking and slowing down back from the intersection. The proverbial black ice, although most of us as driving instructors have never seen black ice come out of a soda machine, but people claim that it exists, and it's simply ice on the roadways that you can't see. First and foremost, most of the time that you are going to encounter ice on the roadways that you cannot see is in the middle of the night when it's dark, or it's going to be the early hours of the morning. There was moisture the day before, either fog, rain, or whatnot, or there was melting of snow and ice on the roadways, and then overnight the temperature dropped and it freezes on the roadway, and in the morning you get ice. This is what happened to me a few years ago when I spun out on the highway going up to Kamloops, went around the corner, I was going too fast. There had been melting ice and snow during the daytime, and then as it got dark and over the nighttime hours, the temperature dropped and the water froze on the roadway. And this is what's going to happen. And the other places that you're going to find ice on the roadways and it's going to form, bridges and overpasses freeze first. The reason for that is they freeze from both the bottom and the top. And if you watch, there's a video I put up about ice and snow. Corey can find that in the south. Most of the vehicles in that video come around the corner, they hit the overpass, and there's ice on the overpass, and that's where they lose control. Low and high elevations, roads that lie in shadow of a building, trees, forests, hills, those types of things, and roads that pass near a body of water. And if you live in the mountains like I do, Marion does, you can go on a 20-mile stretch of road and you can hit all of these conditions that potentially could have ice on the roadways. Where to find ice? Roads that run near bodies of water. There's no traffic on the roadway. This is the other ingredient that is required for you to have ice on the roadways. So the water has to be sitting on the roadway and not being disturbed. If there's a lot of traffic, it's not likely that you're going to have ice form on the roadways. And this is the other piece that happened to me, is I thought I was following another car when I was on the highway and I lost control of my vehicle, but evidently I was not following another car and there were not other vehicles in front of me. And because there was very little traffic on that roadway, it allowed the ice to form. Okay, maintenance crews clean the main roads first. Know that in the wintertime. And most of the time, the examiners are not going to take you into the suburbs and whatnot if you're going for your driver's test in the wintertime. They're going to stick to the main roads because for whatever reason, driving examiners do not like pushing cars out of the ditch. Know that, okay? If there is a lot of snow and ice, they're not going to take you into the suburbs where there is snow and ice and whatnot. Intersections are slippery, curves, corners, and turns. Anytime that you're going around curves, corners, and turns, this is when you potentially could lose control of the vehicle. Anytime that the vehicle gets out of straight, anytime that it goes like this, that's when you're in danger of losing control of the vehicle. So keep it straight, and as long as you're keeping it straight, you're going to be okay. But going around curves, corners, and turns, you want to slow down before the curve, and then you want to power through the curve. I don't mean accelerating, I just mean you have power to the wheels, so the wheels are working to get traction as you're moving forward. Intersections are slippery, as I mentioned. Slow down back from the intersection and then creep up to the intersection where you actually want to get stopped. Main roads are cleared first. Back roads are going to be left until the end of the day, maybe even not until the end of the day. We had a huge dump of snow here some years ago here in Vernon, and I mean a lot of snow, like 3 feet of snow in a 48-hour period. Some of the roads here never got cleared. They just simply never ever cleared them because, as many of you know, most of the cities and municipalities have swapped out big snow clearing equipment for dump trucks with belly plows. Well, belly plows are fine when you get 4 or 6 inches of snow, but anything over that, belly plows won't do the work. Curves, corners, and turns, slow down on the straight, power through the curve, okay? And that may be slow. So you may be doing 10, 15 miles an hour around the corner, around the curve. So you do have to slow down, okay? And know that other people are going to do something goofy when they're driving, because there are many people on the roadways who are not comfortable with driving on ice and snow. They never upgraded their skills. They've never learned how to do it. For whatever reason, they're in a car behind the wheel driving on ice and snow, and they lose control in an intersection. It happens. People do it. All right? They're out there driving when they have no business being behind the wheel of the car. Fortunately, in the wintertime, when it is ice and snow and it is slippery and compromised traction, most of the time the goofy people know to stay home, but not always. Oversteering. Oversteering is when the back end of the car comes around, the ass end of the car. It's called oversteering because you've got way more steering than what you thought you were going to have. Oftentimes, oversteering is driving too fast for conditions of the roadway, and this is exactly what happened a few years ago when I lost control on ice. I had experienced oversteering. I was going too fast, went around the corner, and just as soon as I went around the corner, I'm like, I'm going too fast. The thought went through my head, I am going too fast, and I could feel the back end of the buggy kind of lift up and shift, and I experienced oversteering, and I could not recover from that. So keep your speed down, slow down if you suspect that there are slippery conditions and you're not in a hurry, right? Unfortunately, what happened at the time, I was in a hurry and running for the ferry. It always happens when I'm running for the ferry. Understeering. Understeering is when you turn the steering wheels, but the vehicle continues to go straight. And it happens when you're braking and steering at the same time. And in the winter time, on slippery conditions, compromised traction, you have to have those two actions being separate. You steer first, you brake first, get the vehicle slowed down, and then steer and go around the corner. And this happens oftentimes when you're steering. So you come up to the corner, you hit the brakes, and you start to steer the vehicle, and it continues to go straight. That is called understeering because you're not steering. Now, if you are losing traction, an advanced driving skill that you can use to regain traction is to try and do chop steering. If you're going around a corner, you can pull it down, pull the steering wheel down, release it back to straight, and then pull it down again. It's a technique adopted from racing, mostly racing on gravel roads, rally car racing. It is a technique adopted from rally car racing when they're racing on gravel and dirt roads. They'll go around the corner, they'll bring the steering wheel down, bring it back up to straight, allow the tires to spin and get traction, and then bring it down again. And that chop steering sometimes will allow you to regain traction and able to give you the ability to steer the vehicle on slippery conditions. Skid recovery, steer in the direction you go. And I always say this, and there are drivers from the 1950s who will come back to me and say, you need to steer in the direction of the skid. In the 35 years, 30 years, however long, it's been a very long time that I've been a driving instructor. I have never been able to figure out which way is the direction of the skid, whether it's the way that the front end of the vehicle is going or the back end of the back end of the vehicle is going. But Bill Cosby has a very old skit of losing control of its Volkswagen Beetle in rain, and trying to remember which way is the direction of the skid and which way he should be steering his vehicle. And ultimately, he crashes into a tree and never figures out which way the skid is. But people will come back and say you need to steer in the direction of the skid, which never, ever made sense to me, and I could never figure it out. So what we say is just steer the vehicle in the direction you want to go. People will say to me, oh, you got to steer in the direction of the skid. And I said, well, what if the direction of the skid is towards the ditch or off a cliff? Then you definitely don't want to steer in the direction of the skid. You want to steer in the direction that you want to go. So get out of the main tracks and don't give up. In addition to that, keep your seatbelt on. Your seatbelt not only protects you in the event of a crash, but also keeps you in the driver's seat. If you are not in the driver's seat, it is really tough to drive your vehicle in an emergency situation, especially if you get thrown and you are, in the footwell of the passenger side of the car, the passenger footwell. You're laying down, you can't drive the vehicle from there, okay? So wear your seatbelt to stay in the driver's seat. Interstate backups, these will happen, okay? Stay back. As I've told you in congestion traffic, for the smart drivers that are regular here on the live stream, always be able to see the tires of the vehicle in front making clear contact with the road surface. Keep rolling. Hazard lights. Stay off the brakes. So if you come around a corner or you're on the interstate and you look up and you see a mass of vehicles up there, you need to slow down back, like half a kilometer, quarter of a mile back from where the vehicles are actually stopped. You need to get your hazard lights on, and you need to be watching the traffic coming up behind you. And if you see the vehicles come, you keep rolling forward, because it is less likely that you're going to get rear-ended by traffic when you're moving as opposed to being stopped. And I've been stopped recently a number of times on the highway where there's been crashes and traffic has been backed up and those types of things. I do not pull right up to the stop traffic. I stay back 2 or 3 vehicle lengths. And the reason I stay back 2 or 3 vehicle lengths is because if I'm watching the traffic approaching from the rear, and if I see them coming and they're not stopping, then I will pull forward and I will start banging on the brake pedal to flash the brake lights behind me and get their attention. As well, putting on the 4-way flashers, the hazard lights, to indicate to them that there is something going on the roadway and tell them that traffic in front is actually stopped. You need to have this kind of situational awareness on highways and freeways to prevent yourself being rear-ended, and not only prevent yourself from being rear-ended, but also ending up in the pileup of cars that actually do crash on the roadway. If a crash is imminent, okay, reduce your speed as much as possible. Get on the brakes, try and slow down the vehicle. Aim for something soft, not a tree. Trees don't move, trust me, and they will do a lot of damage to your vehicle. A fence, a hedge, those types of things. All right, if you can just drive along the grass in the ditch, but you're stuck in the ditch, that's fine, okay? You can get pulled out of the ditch. Do not aim for something hard, another vehicle, okay? If you have the choice between a sideswipe crash and a head-on crash, pick the sideswipe crash every time. Proactive winter driving, okay? Pay attention. Fit your vehicle with winter tires, or at least have good quality all-season tires that are M&S rated or the mountain snowflake symbol. As I said, my professional hypothesis is that most of the vehicles that end up in the ditch in the wintertime are people that have very low ability and skill to drive in the wintertime, in addition to the fact that they do not have good quality tires on their vehicles. And as Jay was saying earlier, winter tires make all the difference. Yes, there's a cost associated with it. They are expensive. I will tell you that. They are, even for the buggy. And they're only 15-inch tires. They're $1,000. If you have a big 1,500, Dodge Ram, it's going to be $2,000 for the tires on your vehicle. They're expensive. However, saying that, having winter tires is not an added expense. It simply prolongs the life of the tires on your vehicle. I think the all-season tires that I have to replace next year for the buggy have been on the buggy for like 6 years, but they're not on the vehicle for 3 or 4 months of the year. So know that in terms of buying winter tires for your vehicle, it is not an added expense. It will prolong the life of your all-season tires because they're not on your vehicle for, 4 to 6 months of the year. Paul says, trees always write off your vehicle. Yes, they will write off your vehicle because, even though we think that trees are nice and environmental and we love them, they do not move. They are rooted and they will do damage to your car. They will take a big bite out of your car. Epic, always carry a snow brush and an ice scraper. Some of the automotive stores and Walmart Auto carry a 2 and a snow brush. On the other hand, ice scrapers always carry an emergency kit. Yes, and if you're, as Epic just said, if you're traveling outside of the city, definitely have a survival kit in your vehicle. I have one in my vehicle that just stays in there all the time, and it's got like a snow shovel, some traction mats, blanket, and what else does this have? Jumper cables. If the battery dies or it's too cold and the vehicle won't start, you can get a boost from somebody. Yes, if you're driving outside of the city, definitely have a survival kit in your car. And there's a video here on the channel as well about winter survival kits and what should go in a winter survival kit. If you were doing a lot of driving in the winter time, definitely stock your survival kit so that you can survive being stranded on the highway in the wintertime. We're driving through the mountains here at Christmas. We're going to Calgary and we're flying to Montreal. We will have full ski gear. So we'll have snow pants, jackets, those types of things, and other stuff in the vehicle, food and water and whatnot. So, and the other piece about it is remember, water freezes. So you want to have a candle and a pot to be able to melt ice and snow so that you have water while you're waiting. But, it's not likely that you're going to be stranded for very long. We don't just get those big crazy blizzards in the wintertime that last for 6 or 8 days. So it's not like you're going to be on the side of the road for 6 or 8 days. It's probably 24 or 36 hours that you're going to have to survive in the unlikely event that you end up in the ditch in the wintertime and have to survive in your vehicle. Now, the other piece about this is do not leave your vehicle if you do end up stranded on the side of the road, all right? Stay in your vehicle and wait for emergency people, emergency crews to come along and help you and get you rescued. And the other piece about it is have a cell phone, have a charging cable. I mean, most of us do in this day and age in our vehicles, so that you can call for help, because if your phone's not charged, you can't call for help. Marion, and that's why I want to hibernate during winter. Other people don't necessarily have the correct tires or experience for winter driving. Marion, as I said, you don't have to hibernate. You just keep your distance from other people as you've been doing. You have all the skills in place, my friend. You're going to be just fine. Just stay away from other people on the roadways. And my friend, Mason County, West Virginia, emergency personnel saved a semi-truck driver from his truck that was dangling over a bridge today. Oh, so there's another one. There was the other one that the truck went over the side of the road and the cab was hanging off the trailer. So we have another one. That'll be interesting. I'll have to look that up. Thanks for letting me know about that, Anne. And as Epic said, yes, you definitely want a snow brush and a scraper in your vehicle. These are inexpensive. There is no reason that you shouldn't have one of these in your vehicle. You should not be out there with your hands trying to clean the glass and the lights with snow and ice on your vehicles. The other pet peeve circulating on social media is the number of people that complain about people that do not clean the snow and ice off the top of their vehicle. And I will tell you right now that it's just a reality that people do not clean the top of their vehicles off. I know that smart drivers here on the channel always come back to me and say, oh, I clean every flake of snow off my vehicle and it is pristinely clean and we're awesome and everybody else is the problem. The reality is that 80% of people on the roadways when it snows do not clean their vehicle off completely. They can't reach the roof. They're driving an SUV. They got a pickup truck. They can't get up. They can't be bothered to get up there and get the snow off and those types of things. It'll just blow off or it'll roll off at a light or those types of things. It's a reality. Again, if you're managing your space and you're staying away from other vehicles and you look down the row of traffic and you say to yourself, okay, there's a dummy up there who did not clean the snow and ice off the top of their vehicle, just stay away from them. Just stay away from them. And it's unlikely it's going to come off in chunks anyway. It usually, it's like a snow drift. It just, the wind goes over the snow and ice on the top of the vehicle and it just takes a little bit off and it just comes off in wisps of snow. It rarely comes off in big chunks and smashes a windscreen and those types of things. Those events are rare. So keep your space. You're going to stay safe. Marion, awesome. Elevator fan, don't let your car go under half a tank in the wintertime. Yes, exactly what Elevator fan just said about keeping the top half of your fuel tank full. The reason for this is every fuel tank in every car has a certain amount of water in it. Not a lot of water, but there is a little bit of water. And if you allow the fuel to run to the bottom when it's empty and it's cold outside, there's moisture when you park the vehicle because everything's warm, and you'll get condensation inside the fuel tank. And then because there isn't enough fuel in the tank, that water will freeze and potentially could cause your fuel system to freeze up. Now, this is a minor problem that was much more prominent in the old days before the 1990s. Now it's rare that that's going to happen, but it is recommended, and especially if you're driving on highways and freeways in the wintertime, do not allow your fuel tank to go less than a quarter of a tank, because if you get stranded somewhere, what's going to happen is your car's going to run out of fuel and you're not going to be able to run the engine for heat. So know that. Keep more than a quarter of a tank of fuel in your vehicle in the wintertime if you're driving out on interstates and freeways and highways. Marion, excellent. 8942, congratulations on passing your test. Thank you so much for dropping back, letting us know that you passed your test. That is awesome, my friend. Congratulations. What did you do to celebrate your success of passing your driver's test in the wintertime? Yay! Took your driver's test in the wintertime. Good on you. That is awesome, my friend. Corey's put up the video for what goes into a winter survival kit, and he's also put up the video on winter tires for your vehicle and what you're looking for in terms of winter tires and fitting winter tires on your vehicle. We've had this question before from Smart Drivers Retired, asked me this a few weeks ago about what tires I recommend for a vehicle. Michelin. I love Michelin tires. I've got the Michelin winter tires back on the buggy here, and it just drives and rides so nice with Michelin winter tires on it. So that's what I recommend for your vehicle if they make them. Unfortunately, Michelin does not make the all-season tires for the buggy anymore, so I need to figure out something else, either Firestones or Bridgestones or some other brand of tires. I have a brand on right now that I do not like at all, so we're doing that. Marion, when you lost control of your car a couple years ago, were you guys okay? Your heart must have been beating double time. Marion, it was actually a little bit surreal. I believe that there are angels, right? Never drive faster than your guardian angels can fly. And the car went around in a circle. It backed into the snowbank, and I went, oh, that happened. I put it in gear and drove to Tawasin. Straight to Tawasin, 5 hours. And nope, it didn't faze me at all. Didn't faze me. I was like, oh, that happened. But I do look back on it, and I was going too fast for conditions, and I was not paying attention in the way that I should have. Because I would have known that there was moisture in the air, that the temperature had dropped, there was no traffic around me, it was late. I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I would need to check the timestamp on the video, but it was late, and it was my fault. I was going too fast for conditions of the roadway, and I got on a bit of ice, and the buggy looked after me. My guardian angels were there. Yes, never drive faster than your guardian angels can fly. So we were good. Epic, is this also a good idea during the winter time? Also purchase additives that keep the fuel from freezing before wintertime. Get a good quality windshield wipers that all weather rated. Yes, those are excellent suggestions, Epic. If you are going out somewhere, so for example, we're going to Calgary through the mountains in the wintertime. The last time that we did this, driving to Calgary in the wintertime, we got to Golden, which is about halfway between here and Calgary, on a 6.5 hour trip. We stopped in Golden. It was minus 35 degrees Celsius, which is about the same in Fahrenheit. Once you get to minus 40, they're both the same. Yes, I would put fuel line additive into the buggy. And I will do this when we're driving through in the wintertime. I will put fuel line additive in the buggy. The reason I'm doing that is when I get to the airport, I'm going to park the vehicle for a week in Calgary. It's probably going to go down to sub-zero temperatures during the time that we're gone. So I want to have fuel line antifreeze in the tank, and as well I will fill the fuel tank up before we leave, so it's sitting there so there won't be any moisture that will be allowed to freeze in the fuel line system. So yes, amazing. And as well, the other thing that Epic said there about making sure that you have good quality windshield wipers on your vehicle. Fill the washer fluid up with winter washer fluid so that it doesn't freeze, because somebody asked me this question. Summer washer fluid will freeze in the wintertime. So you don't want it to freeze because it's a plastic tank in there. And we know that when water freezes, it expands and it'll crack and break that tank, and then you won't have washer fluid. And if you get a nice warm day out on the highways where the snow is melting and there's lots of moisture, and they put sand and salt on the roadways, you're going to get all kinds of yuck and guck. And you're going to need your windshield washer fluid to have visibility and keep your glass clean. If that happens, you're out and there's a lot of yuck and guck and spray coming off the trucks and traffic, be sure to go into a fuel station, clean all your lights, clean all your glass using the squeegee provided in the fuel station. Corey, that would be if a car sat outside for like at least a week with snow piling up and condensing for snow to come off in chunks. Yes. It doesn't happen all the time, but again, it's one of those sensational things that gets all the helicopter parents, gets their juices going, and they're just, oh my God, look what happened. We have to do something about this, and the government just needs to help us and keep us safe because we're all going to die from the chunks of snow coming off the other traffic. That's what happens. So it's, I don't know what's going on with my hand, but anyway, we're all good. Paul, mere signal shoulder checking was a mandatory check anytime passengers request to you. For example, you turn right but inform to proceed straight. When I did the exercise, a car passed me. Oh, and talking about that, what Paul is talking about in terms of, we now have these new vehicles that have these huge LED lights surrounding the headlights. Have you seen these? They're on pickup trucks and big SUVs and whatnot. And when the signal goes on, they go orange, but they double as a daylight running light. And I was doing a lane change, and I looked over, and there was a vehicle in my blind spot with those big LED lights around the headlights, and I thought that they were changing lanes. I thought they had their signal on, and I was like, so I aborted my turn. And so maybe these things aren't the best things on these new vehicles with all these big LED lights on the front and whatnot. I don't know. I digress. Yes, as Corey says, if you can get all the snow off your vehicle, definitely take all the snow off your vehicle, right? So it's just a safety feature. But again, it's not a reality of driving. It's like so many things in driving. It is just simply not a reality, and you need to put in strategies, skills, and abilities that are going to keep you safe on the roadways. 7X, government isn't driving, and a lot of people, they are not driving carefully. They are driving recklessly out there in the snow. I don't think that they're intentionally driving recklessly in the snow, 7X. I think it's that people simply do not have the confidence or the skill level to be able to do it safe. And we get people that simply have never seen snow before, and they're driving way too fast for conditions of the road. It's kind of like teenagers when they first get in a car and they don't realize how fast they're going, and then they try and do a maneuver and they're like, oh, wait a minute. Why am I sliding into the ditch? It's a little bit like that people simply don't have the skill set to be able to drive safely in the snow. And even some of us, myself included, sometimes we get caught out. Sometimes we get to a section of road that we didn't expect to be slippery, and then it's like, oh my God, it's slippery. Corey, seems to be an EV thing, having a big light bar that isn't actually the headlights. Easy way to identify them if nothing else. I don't know whether it's just EVs, Corey. I think it's pickup trucks, like the new pickup trucks and the new SUVs and whatnot. 7X, based on what I see, winter driving is harder than driving in the summer. 7X, statistics, it is a bit more challenging, and you do need a higher skill set. I think it balances out. I think it's actually more dangerous to drive in the summertime, and actually traffic crash statistics would, bear that out. Corey, still a good, safety habit. Excellent. Awesome. And yes, so if your vehicle is sitting in the wintertime, keep your fuel tank full, put in some windshield washer, put in some antifreeze into the tank. It's just a little bottle. It's a couple of bucks for the fuel line antifreeze. You just put it in and you're good to go. And it's one of the safety features. The other thing that we had happen the other day is the doors froze on the buggy, and you can buy lock. I mean, most of you have key fobs now, but the buggy doesn't have a key fob. It still has the old key. And, so lock antifreeze, you just stick it into the lock and then you squeeze it. As I said, most of you have key fobs now, and I don't have that. Still using a key, so that's another thing that you might need to have if you've got an older vehicle. But again, drive safely in the wintertime, brake early, slow down back from where you actually want to stop, creep up, identify where there's going to be ice on the roadways, particularly in the morning. The locations, bridges and overpasses freeze first. Know that it's more slippery when temperatures are around freezing. Keep yourself safe, keep your space. 7X, I hate the difference with antifreeze and coolant. Okay. There isn't antifreeze. Most all of these newer vehicles all have just antifreeze in them, and you don't have to worry about it in the wintertime. Is illegal considered to be? Yes. So, yes, we're going back to what Corey was saying. I was going to make that point. It is illegal to not clear the snow and ice off your vehicle. And if you haven't cleared the snow and ice off, and it is apparent that you haven't done that, and you pass a police officer, they can pull you over and give you a ticket for doing that. 7X, what's the difference between coolant and antifreeze? Okay, coolant and antifreeze are one and the same thing. It's the same word. It's two different words for the same thing. Coolant is just the antifreeze that goes into the radiator for the cooling system. Okay, they're one and the same thing. They're not different things. Windshield washer fluid has winter and summer windshield washer fluid. So that's the only difference. Okay, elevator fan, as he just said, main roads will be plowed first. When you get into the side roads or secondary roads, that's where you're going to encounter snow and ice on the roadways. Stay safe this winter. Keep your space. Good tires on your vehicle. All the rest of it, good windshield washer fluid. winter washer fluid and good windshield wipers on your vehicle. Stay safe out there. Keep your distance. Stay away from other traffic. Brake early. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night.